The outcome we have two products coming out. There's a policy brief that's available online, and it's in English, although the link seems to be in Finnish. And also the report is available in English. Everything except for the annexes that are in Finnish, but the key matters are, I think, very well explained in the actual report itself. So here we are. Finland did it quickly. In 6 months, we've wrapped it up and had results. You may later ask questions, was it worth it? I heard from Sami that, and I fully agree, we did it in a hurry, but it's better to do something than not to do anything at all. Because if we had taken all this time for preparations, we would not have the results for as a basis of the new government program. So we still have open questions. We have 17 main goals, 169 sub-targets, and we have 10 years' time to achieve those. And we still have we don't have a clear picture what path should Finland take to reach the sustainable development goals. But at least the report has given us guidance. We know where are the weaknesses. We just have to figure how to get over those. And this slide is not visible, but it depicts that actually the think tank that carried out the evaluation produced alternative or this chart that describes transformation pathways to more impactful sustainable development policy, and it's published on their website, because here in this form it's unfortunately impossible to read. I look forward to the presentation of my colleagues who have taken completely different road to evaluating SDGs. And after this session, I'm happy with the help of Sami to reply any questions you might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ulla. It barely gives justice to the depth of work that's been ongoing in Finland, as will be the case in the other countries in the 15-minute format. The full presentations as submitted will be part of the conference material available. There will, of course, also be time to engage bilaterally. We will have questions for the panel too. I'm sure there are many who already have questions, but I'll ask to await. We will do our other presentations, then we'll open the floor. So with that, Zakari, Lawal, we are going to give you the floor if we now are able to switch presentations. Technical staff, we will move on to the experience of Nigeria.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Arild. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Well, initially, the focus of my presentation is to share two experiences, from Nigeria, but which is looking at how we develop our national monitoring evaluation framework, and then what the steps we are taking to undertake the evaluation of the SDGs. However, in view of the focus, of this presentation, I think I will lay more emphasis on, our experiences on the SDGs. Can I have that?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Well, okay. Yeah. So on the screen is the title of my presentation, which is, sharing Nigeria's experience, in the development of the national M1E policy framework and framework for evaluating the SDGs. And as I have said, I will skip the experience, on the development of the policy framework, unless there is a question around it, and concentrate more, on the evaluation of the SDGs, which is the key issue, of the moment. Okay. This is the policy framework that we have. These are some of its key features, but which we may just share later. Then this one, the evaluation of the SDGs. So basically, the Nigeria's experience on the evaluation of the SDGs started in December 2018. We were privileged to attend a workshop organized by UNICEF in Ethiopia in December 2018. And the workshop actually was plugged the issue of most of the national voluntary reviews focusing more on monitoring reports, not asking, looking at we are either on target or below target, but not looking at what are the whys, what are the reasons, behind that, the how, so that, other people can also learn from experience. So at that workshop, it was flagged that there is need to go the path, of evaluation. So what we did when we went back, is to quickly establish a technical working group on SDGs evaluation. And in that group, we try to emphasize, on a synergy, joint synergy between the government, UNICEF, other UN development partners, civil society organizations, the academia. So after forming that group, then we feel it is important to conduct, an evaluation capacity building, so that, we establish a common understanding and a common lexicon, among the actors. Because as you are all aware, the issue of monitoring and evaluation, has a lot of technical jargons. And it is important that, you have a common understanding, a common lexicon, a common language, so that you move all in the same direction. So in that workshop, we made it all-inclusive. We have the development partners, people from the government, people from the academia, people from civil society organization. Okay. Huh? Okay. So during that workshop, what we did is to also look at the SDGs and then try to reach a common consensus through a scientific process, of prioritization. And for that, we came up, with a criteria, which, I will quickly show you. In that criteria, what we did was to look at the SDGs, the SDG goals, and then try to prioritize them, along some common criteria, like issue of how do they contribute, to human development initiatives, the availability, of 5-year sector strategic plan, existence, of flagship programs that are contributing to the SDGs, leadership commitment, of the sector, because we are more, looking at the government is the key driver of the SDGs, as you all know. The issue of nationwide and geographic, coverage, of the program. Then the funding level for each of the sector, the goal that is implemented by the sectors. Then the existing partnership and sector development coordination group existing in each of the sector. And then whether there is already an existing baseline assessment done, for that particular sector that address an SDG goal. Then whether there is also an existence of a monitoring data in place. Then whether there is also an existing evidence from 2018-19 survey assessment reports, and then existing evaluation and research, in that particular sector. And then the likelihood of uptake and use of that evaluation, by the government and other stakeholders to change what they do in light, of the evaluation finding. We also use that, as a key criteria. These criteria, are all highlighted, on the screen, and it's in my paper. We can share it with you. So part of what we did, out of that prioritization was to come up, to rank, those particular SDGs. And then when we rank, we identify key SDG areas. This is the capacity building training, participants. And after that, we came up, it was a scoring matrix. And when we did the scoring, collectively, SDG, as you can see on the screen, SDG goal number 3, which is looking at good health and well-being, come first. Then followed by SDG 4, which is education. Then SDG 1, which is no poverty. And SDG 8, which is looking at decent work and economic growth. And then the SDG 5, which is gender equality. So that gave us, a direction based, on that criteria, including issue of utility of the evaluation after, it is conducted. So after that particular process, what we did again is to develop, 3 terms of reference, detailed, terms of reference, on the 3 key areas that were identified, which is the area of no poverty, the area of health, the area of education. Then after putting up the terms of reference, then we established, a national steering committee on SDG evaluations, involving, all the stakeholders that I have mentioned. We collectively looked at the terms of reference, reached, a consensus and agreement, on the strategies, on the design, on the way forward. And after that, we went, on international competitive bidding on 2 key areas. Because when we started the process, UNICEF agreed to support us, in the evaluation of one of the SDGs. And then in the course of our discussion, the government also get convinced that they should also fund, one of the SDGs. So in the end, we have ready-made funding, for evaluating the 2 SDGs. So what we did, was to quickly, mobilize and go into international competitive bidding. And after the bidding, 2 international consultants, were procured. One, from the United Kingdom, which is, I think, Oxford Management Consultants. And then one, from United States of America. I couldn't really remember the name. Allegria Associates. So it's a United States, independent consultancy company. So those 2, were selected. And so after the selection, they are now in place and are ready, to mobilize, to commence, the process. However, part of the issue that we look at is the evaluation criteria, which you already know is very key, because in the end, it is about the evaluation questions that, will highlight, the value that will be added. And in that evaluation criteria, we first of all, took cognizance, of the OECD, evaluation criteria, which is looking at issue of relevance. And going by what we have, on the screen, you can see that we try to look at issue of, for instance, under health, which already has, an existing, national health sector strategic plan, 2. That is to be implemented from 2019 to 2023, and has, all the prerequisite, information that we need. So we quickly try to say, okay, let's establish, the evaluation questions, and we try to look at the relevance, of, for instance, the sector policies, strategy, and coherence, with the SDG 3, and in the SDG 3 well mainstream, in the health sector strategy. We look at what is the value added, of the SDG 3, for the health sector strategy under the relevance. Then we also look at the effectiveness as another criteria. And under that, we have also plugged some of the questions that you can see on the screen, which include, issue of the status of the SDG 3 in relation to the indicators in Nigeria, and what progress has been achieved, towards the overall output and outcomes of the health sector strategy. What are the key issues that should be addressed? To what extent were the strategy and tools in implementation of the program able to achieve the outcomes? The questions, are all there, for your consideration. Then we also look at evaluation questions regarding efficiency. And under that, we basically look at the issue of the main mechanism in place for achievement, of the SDG and its targets, and how timely, what the mobilization and availability of human and financial resources, how timely, were the procurement and distribution of essential drugs implemented, what is the value for money, cost effectiveness, of the strategies. Then we also put some questions, for the impact. That is, to what extent were the expected changes in individual healthy life achieved. And under that, we look at the reduction of under 5 mortality per key groups, in the state. We look at the extent, we also look at the, so apart from those, we also look at other, areas, issue of impact. We also look at, we develop some question on the human rights, that is leaving no one behind. We also look at other, important areas like sustainability, areas, of gender equality, areas of equity, areas of universality. We all develop, evaluation questions as part of the design TOR that, we bidded for. So after that, we also look at, the design methods, and we recommended that it should be mixed methods. So basically, these are what we considered under the design. And as next steps, we intend to also establish a national steering committee on SDG evaluation. We also, as I said earlier, want to quickly mobilize, to commence the evaluation of the 2 SDG areas. Then, after the evaluation, what we also intended to do is to host a national event on evidence-based policy advocacy around evaluations, where we are going to present our conclusion and recommendations, and then to also ensure that the use of some of the key findings to strengthen Nigeria's voluntary review, which we intend to present in 2020. Because the objective of this evaluation is, what we intend is to ensure that it is concluded, if possible, before our next voluntary national report reporting to the high-level political forum in New York, which Nigeria is slated for 2020. We have already presented one in 2017, and we are now going to present the second one in 2020. So basically, with regards to the SDG, this is what we have done. And some of the experiences that we feel are also worth sharing, apart from what I have said in the course of my presentation, is the need for countries to ensure that there is a strong coordination center. It's very key to driving evaluation initiatives in government. You need a strong coordination center. For instance, in Nigeria, what we have the National Monitoring Evaluation Department, which support all government agencies, in terms of evaluation and monitoring evaluation, standardization and coordination. So what we did is to quickly mobilize and work with the SDG office, which is under the presidency, and gather all the other stakeholders, so that we avoid issue of rivalry among the ministries, department, and agencies, and also support the SDG to ensure that that coordination is there. And then issue of synergy evaluation stakeholders is also very key. There are several evaluation actors in Nigeria. The development partners are there, SDG is there, the ministries are there, so we ensure that technical working groups are put in place. And that fast track, the process of implementing, what we have done, because we are able to reach a consensus and a common direction, and minimize, friction among stakeholders. Then political commitment was also of top policy makers is also very key, because when we came back from that workshop as technocrats, what we did is to approach, the political leaders, we met, with the special advisor, on SDGs, who is working with Mr. President, and told her that, look, this is the international consensus. This is the direction that the world wants to go, with regards to the voluntary national reporting. And we quickly, had that buy-in. And we also had a discussion with the Minister of Finance, the Minister of National Planning, and that all give impetus and common direction. So political commitment, is very key, and it is important. Then the catalytic funding, by the development partner, which is UNICEF, also, enhance, the buy-in of the government. Because when the UNICEF say they are going to fund one, government say, okay, we will also see how we can more quickly mobilize resources to evaluate the other SDG. And we will also engage other development partners to ensure that the other SDGs are also evaluated. We will support you, we will reach out to them. Then ranking and prioritization evaluation, that aligns, with the government priorities. We also found, that prioritization and ranking and align it, with the government, plan, which is the medium-term plan of the government, which we call the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, also ensured and enhanced, the buy-in of the government. So, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you, and I thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share our experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you again. There will be many questions again arising, no doubt. I hope what you're saying is not that you're directing this where the international community wants Nigeria to go, rather where Nigeria and Nigerians want to go with its own body of policy and public administration. But I'm going to pass then to Mr. Islam, who's going to talk now about the Bangladesh experience. Then we will be opening up the floor fully for discussion. Thank you. Now, please switch to third presentation, Bangladesh.
Okay. Good afternoon, distinguished panelists, respected guests. Let me share with you evaluation practice of SDGs in Bangladesh. It's my opportunity to share with the August gathering. Let me start with the experiences. Let me start with the experiences of MDGs that we follow in 2015 within an evaluation framework. Say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And this is the snapshot what we have achieved during 2001 and 2015. And in the evaluation, we identified the contributing factors that were instrumental for implementing the MDGs. There is a technical glitch. It is really challenging to present in this way. So these are that I used to present the contributing factors which are instrumental for implementing the MDGs. And now, since MDGs was an unfinished agenda, the same evaluation report has identified some areas of unfinished MDGs, which will help us for implementing in the SDGs as well. Really challenging for making this presentation. It doesn't work.
Could we have a technician, please? It should be.
Don't take too many things, just click forward.
So back.
Ready when you are. This is not. Just go forward. Just go forward.
Come back. This one?
Not in the middle. Forward to back only.
Doesn't work. Back.
We have a sizing. Do you have a technician, please, to?
In that way?
technicians, please help sizing here. Do we have technicians from the back can help with the sizing here? Please. Meanwhile, Mr. Islam, I
Yes.
suggest you try.
I can continue, right?
Speak.
Speaking.
Move forward, speaking, and we will catch up with the PowerPoint.
Okay, yes.
Where is your computer?
I have not used my computer. You just reduce the computer screen, okay?
Just reduce the size of the screen, please.
Yes.
And now,
It's not okay.
we have a projection problem.
It's close.
Apologies, bear with us as we.
So let me share with you the experiences that we work. Okay, we start with the evaluation of MDGs. Just let me discuss in that way. Started with the presentation of MDGs, what are the contributing factors that were instrumental in performing relatively better in MDGs achievement in our country's context. And in the later part, we were defining the challenging issues that were also identified or which were not attained in our country's context. And we all know that MDG was an unfinished agenda, so we have highlighted all these issues in the SDGs as well. And the first of things that we introduced in our country's context was the SDG mapping. We try to incorporate all the SDGs targets and indicators to be included in our 7th five-year plan that were the flagship document of our country's context. And then we did the SDG data gap analysis, where data are available, where data is partially available, and data are not available at all. And then we, based on that study, we completed the SDG M&E framework, that monitoring and evaluation framework of SDGs. We try to incorporate that 3 successive five-year plan will be required for implementing our 7th SDGs. So 7th five-year plan, 8th five-year plan, and 9th five-year plan. So we, in the monitoring and evaluation framework, we try to identify 3 milestones for 2020, 2025, and 2030, where we are and where we are interested to go in the 2030. So 3 milestones have been identified for 127 indicators, and a couple of them are qualitative in nature. So in the framework, we could establish 108 indicators related data, where data available, where data's sources are identified, where we have already mentioned where we want to go in by 2020, by 2025, and 2030. By this time, we have already highlighted the same thing in the SDG tracker, that is online SDG data repository, where the data will be incorporated by the data focal points, and that will be monitored online monitoring systems. That is a very useful instrument for our country's context, which will be useful for the policymakers and also the academics and the civils and the general citizen as well.
Only before the microphone.
Only. Let me go here. What there? Yeah? Yes. Okay. Yes, it's now working. Thank you very much. So this is the data gap analysis that I was discussing about it, data gap analysis, and now this is the data gap analysis that was used, and then we use the SDG monitoring and evaluation framework that was just, I was just discussing about this, and then we have identified the very important and innovative ideas about 39 plus 1. This is related to the SDG localization, particularly at the district and sub-district level. We have identified in our country's context, there are some areas, or in the rural or sub-rural areas, there are definitely some challenges with regard to the implementation of SDGs. So we, from the 17 goals, we have identified 39 indicators. And plus 1, that is the specialty or very innovative ideas in our country's context. We have identified that +1 will represent leave no one behind. So in the division level, in the district level and the sub-district level, training was going on, and from the training it was identified that the stakeholders should identify which areas or in which particular areas they are lagging behind compared to the national average. It might be in the health, it might be in the education, it might be in gender. So the +1 is the true instrument for focusing on the SDG leave no one behind. So you have identified that 39 priority indicators all represent the 17 goals, and one represents the leave no one behind component for SDGs in our country. And in the global arena, we have launched the SDG monitoring framework. SDG tracker was launched by our Honorable Prime Minister in 2017 during the General Assembly meeting. Again. Okay. Then a portal. Okay. In the portal, we see that the progress in the SDG tracker. We can progress the track. We can data visualization and reporting system, and indicator correlation might be there, and disaggregation related data was also available there, and constituency related tracker, because in our country, member of the parliaments have an authority or responsibility in line with to be involved in the local level development activities of our country. So they have their own commitment during the election manifesto, and the government who came in power in 2014, they prepared the election manifesto, and in the manifesto, all the targets of SDGs were incorporated. So now we are also interested to see how the election manifesto is aligned with the SDGs, and we have given a scope in the SDG tracker that how can we also track the government's commitment with regard to the SDGs, and how much resources are required will also be available. The data ecosystem, we are also incorporating data from the, it is a data repository and data visualization, report, progress tracking, evaluation and policy making, and all the public representative ministries, directorate, General Assembly, General development partners, CSOs, international organizations, citizens, private sectors. They are the whole system for the SDG data system, and the whole of the government approach we are now following for collecting data. And it is not only the responsibility of the NSO, that the National Statistical Office, to generate data, but also data is coming from other data generating organizations in the different ministries. Since we are also incorporating administrative data, so data is generated and they are also coming from other sources. Here we are focusing about the capacity development of the government officials who will provide data, who will generate data, who will approve the data and data authentication. So in the different format. So from the perspective of data generation and from the perspective of the data authentication, all related officials are being imparted training for this SDG tracker. And all the process, there is the guidelines from the Prime Minister's office, where I belong to, the Principal Coordinator SDG Affairs. A high-level post has been created under the Honorable Prime Minister, who looks after the coordination issue. And we have a blending from the Prime Minister's office with the Planning Commission of Bangladesh. So the Principal Coordinator SDG Affairs, Prime Minister's office, head the committee, but all the technical issue is done by the Planning Commission. So there is a blending of the Prime Minister's office and the Planning Commissions with regard to SDGs implementation and monitoring in our country's context. Okay, this is the how we can identify the SDG thematic data analysis. The student in the SDG tracker, different level of analysis can be shown. Here is an example of student-teacher ratio, and it also represents the geographical area, which is palatable for the political masters, and all the stakeholders can see it online. And then also we have another examples of financial inclusion based on using the information of the SDG tracker. So, SDG implementation review, SIR. In 2018, for the first time, we have incorporated these issues. At least around 2,000 participants from the government, NGO, CSO, private sector development partners, academia, whole society representative were there with regard to the implementation status of SDGs in our country. So lead ministries secretaries presented their ideas, and lead ministries NGOs who were involved there, they presented their ideas, and where we are. So it is a platform that has been used in our country, whole society approach, and we are using this instrument for reviewing the progress, and also the direction is coming from this SIR, SDG implementation review. And for the first time, we implement the SDG, we provided the SDG progress report in our country, and we have identified where we're doing better, where something are challenging issues are there, so that we can take strong measure or collective measures for alleviating some problems. So here I am using the SDG M&E framework, but definitely it would be difficult since it is not working. This the technical. Here I can show you that the Agenda 2030 will be implemented by 3 successive 5-year plans. So we have identified the national level horizontal integration, that is the lead ministries are there. Very challenging to explain. So in the lead ministry, co-lead ministry, associate ministry, development partners, NGOs, so all have come up through the SIR process. We have established a platform to discussing among themselves. Then same issues we have now forwarded with the divisional level, district level, and sub-district level. And each division, district, and sub-district, we have constituted a participatory committee. In the division level, the divisional commissioner heads. In the district level, the deputy commissioner heads. And in the sub-district level, the Upazala Nirbahi officer or Upazala executive officer, he heads. And all the representative of the society, NGO, CSO, private sector, different areas, they are members of that committee. So we have identified the whole of society approach in true sense. And now we are planning that the review will start from the lower level. From the lower level, and then it will be updated to the district, sub-district, and division, and then the national level. In that way, we are now planning, and then it ultimately we have created the National Data Coordination Committee, NDCC, headed by the Secretary of NSO and all the data producing agencies. They will prepare the report for for the SDG Implementation and Review Committee. It will be analyzed, and then it will be placed in the cabinet, whole cabinet. After the adoption of the SDG, in each year, a full cabinet meeting apprises the SDG implementation status in our country. For the last 3 years, 3 meetings were held. Full cabinet were informed, they were aware, and they provided the instruction for implementing of SDGs related issues. So this is the data generation, because data would be very crucial. So from the full availability to the partial availability, the full availability, we started with 61, and we hope that by 2030, 200 data will be available. Definitely the partial available will decline from 60 to 30, and not available will definitely come down to 2, because 1 or 2 indicators we don't have in our relevance in our country's context. Then finally, Honorable Prime Minister, the political commitment that our Nigerian friend was discussing. Our Honorable Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina, she has a visionary leadership, and under his dynamic leadership, Bangladesh has now converted, in the process of converting from the LDCs to the developing country status. And there is a vision 2021, which is in the process of finalization, and it is finally implemented. And now we are in the process of preparing the vision 2041, where Bangladesh aspires to be a developed country at the time. And in this juncture, she has a unique opportunity. When in 2000, when the Millennium Declaration was adopted, she was the signatory from Bangladesh on behalf of the government of Bangladesh. And in 2015, when SDG Declaration was there, she, the same guy, Sheikh Hasina, represented Bangladesh. So 2 successive global goals, she represented Bangladesh in the global arena. And in 2010 and onwards, many international organizations accorded different prestigious awards to her for her different achievements in social and economic sphere. So she believes that Bangladesh do well in MDGs and it should do well in SDGs as well. So this is the ownership and dedication from the top level, and since the higher level have the ownership, and we have incorporated the SDGs issue in the 7th 5-year plan, and we are also in the process of preparing the 8th 5-year plan, which will be on board in 1st of July 2020. So we are in the process of incorporating other areas which were not perfectly incorporated in the 7th 5-year plan. We are in the process of doing that. And hopefully, in the evaluation, since majority of the SDGs issues were incorporated in the 7th 5-year plan, we are in the process of monitoring or evaluating the 7th 5-year plan, and the result and the suggestion will be incorporated in the 8th 5-year plan as well. And by saying this, we are also in the process of participating in the Voluntary National Review of 2020 along with Nigeria. So I hope the commitment that we have shown from the higher level and the way we are implementing SDGs from the national level to the local level, and by monitoring these, the progress and everything, and incorporating all the people or all the society approach, hopeful that we will do better in the SDGs implementation. Thank you very much. Sorry that I was not satisfied with the way I had the plan to prepare. You all know that for technical glitches, I couldn't. Thank you.
Apologies are ours to you for the technicalities, indeed not your. Thank you very much to Monirul, Ulla and Lawal. I will now be opening the floor for questions, reflections, be it in a direct question to the presentations or more broad reflections. We have additionally Mr. Sami Pirkkala on audio on account of the Finnish aspect as well. I will be needing help with the microphones as I call on respondents or questions from the floor. At the back here, I think from Mexico, please, I have one here, I have one here, lady here, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, in that order. We'll take a few and then allow for the panel to reflect. Please, gentlemen at the back, microphone. Microphone volume, please, otherwise come up here. No, please, we'll give, wait a moment, we will give microphone one more chance. This also... There we go. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Very interesting, as always, the presentations here. But I have a big concern. Everywhere I go, when we link evaluation to SDGs, there's always Finland and Nigeria. Finland and Nigeria. Finland and Nigeria. Now it's Bangladesh, very good. But that means that in many countries, the evaluation of SDGs is not there. And I think there are 2 reasons why. One is because still there is not an easy way to evaluate SDGs. We haven't found the right way to do that. But previously, we don't have evaluation of SDGs in countries because we haven't had implementation of SDGs in many countries. so I saw, as long as we don't have good implementation of SDGs in the countries, we won't have evaluations. Because I believe that implementation is very, very difficult. In our assessment we made with many countries over the past 4 years, either countries only link what they do with SDGs, which that's very naive, or they only prepare for the voluntary national reports, which they looks very nice, but there's nothing to do with SDGs in the country. So there's my concern. I just want to leave it here on the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we'll have microphone forward on the right-hand side here, please. Help with microphone forward. A lady here, second row. Thank you.
Speak Arabic? Thank you. شكرا جزيلا للجميع، ومن دواعي سروري أنا أحضر هذا المؤتمر القيم، ونشكر كل المنسقين. بالحقيقة حبيت أسأل أستاذ إسلام بتجربة بنغلاديش، ما هي المصادر اللي طرقت بأنه عديته مصفوفة، وكانت مصادر البيانات من مصادر متعددة. بالحقيقة إذا نعتمد على مصادر متعددة، ليس فقط نأخذها أما من السجلات الإدارية أو من التعدادات أو من المسوح اللي يقوم الجهاز المركزي للإحصاء أو أي أجهزة إحصائية. في الحقيقة لو نعتمد على بيانات من منظمات مجتمع مدني أو من جهات أخرى، تكون آلية جمع البيانات تختلف عن آلية جمع البيانات من خلال المسوحات والتعداد والسجلات الإدارية. هل هذا صحيح بأنه نقدر نعتمد غير المنهجية وغير آلية وطرق احتساب اللي تختلف ضمن المنظمات الدولية داخل المنطقة وضمن منظمات المجتمع المدني، لأنه لم تعكس الواقع الحقيقي لكافة المجتمع، لربما تأخذ شريحة معينة وليس تكون البيانات بصورة منهجية وعلمية تعكس الواقع الكلي. إضافة إلى ذلك لم نرى أي تجربة أو طرق نجاح ممكن في الصورة تعكس لنا ما هي يعني من أين بدأنا ونحن أين وصلنا. شكرا.
With my apologies for the unpreparedness on the part of the panel for being able to have the translation, I will leave the question for further reflection amongst other colleagues who are able to engage. Meanwhile, we shall now be ready to take further also in Arabic. One more, please, on the side here, lady also on the second floor.
Yes, a question to Ms. Ulla. You mentioned that among the recommendations was to use the phenomenon-based budgeting. Is this the same as performance-based budgeting?
And I had one more that I had flagged. Was there a gentleman on this side? Meanwhile, thank you very much for headsets. I will allow for panelists to reflect by begging one or two more questions. It gives us... are there more questions or reflections from the floor? Please, we'll take one for the gentleman on the front row here. Microphone, please. I had in mind, in fact, the gentleman on the very first row was the one.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and panelists. My first question is, when we, from the Finnish experience, case study, did you evaluate the progress of all the 17 SDGs, or you have chosen some of them to evaluate their, its progress? Going to Nigeria, case study or experience, I would like you to shed some light or to give us a brief explanation about the evaluation framework, which you skipped in the beginning of your presentation. And going back to the Bangladesh case study, when you have selected the 39 indicators plus one, was the only restriction or the only criteria you have chosen is the data availability for these 39 KPIs, or is there any other criteria you have relied on selecting this 39 KPI? Thank you.
Thank you. I will not seek to synthesize all the questions. I will ask Monirul for some initial reflections, and we will move down the panel. Monirul.
Thank you. I start with the question, the last question related to 39 plus 1. With regard to 39, all the 17 goals was discussed. So in my presentation, I have shown that from poverty we have taken 2, from hunger we have taken 2, from health we have taken 3, from quality education we have taken 5. So in that way, so 2, 3, 5, the quality education you see 5, but not based on only the data availability. It is there are a couple of indicators in 39 where data is not still available, but we think that it is most important. If data is not available, we have to create data immediately. So to make it a very emphatic way, we have identified the 39. And for plus 1, it is another challenging task, because different sub-districts have identified different priorities where they are lagging behind, particularly say in gender, say in education, say in the hilly region they have one level of plus 1. In the climatic vulnerable area, they have different one. But there also data availability would be challenged. But only based on data availability we have selected 39? No, that not. And from the first question that was mentioned, yes, starting from the 6th 5-year plan and also in the 7th 5-year plan, Bangladesh in the planning document, Bangladesh has highlighted the monitoring and evaluation framework. In the 6th 5-year plan, we identified 35 indicators, development results framework was there. In the 7th 5-year plan, we have incorporated 88 indicators because we were interested to incorporate the SDGs indicators as well. So in the 7th 5-year plan, there are 88 indicators related to the monitoring and evaluation framework, and there is a development results framework aligned with that. So in the planning procedure, the monitoring and evaluation framework is being aligned in the national level. So whenever we are discussing, the question was raised that why Finland and Nigeria and then came Bangladesh. Yes, Bangladesh has incorporated this monitoring and evaluation framework in its national development policies. And sorry for my sister, the machine was not in my head. If you can raise this question again, then or I can answer, otherwise I can openly, bilaterally discuss with you. Thank you.
Lawal, would you wish to reflect?
Well, I mean, two key issues in a way are raised. Issue of why Nigeria, why Finland, and now Bangladesh, it looks, other countries are not implementing the SDGs. Well, that's not a question, that I can answer.
Please don't. In fact, we have 117 countries here this week, all of whom discussing the SDGs, and so when it comes to this particular panel, that was the case, and so no need for you to respond on that.
So it's a global consensus, isn't it? Well, anyway, then the other question is the issue of the homegrown national monitoring evaluation framework we developed. And maybe, can you just maybe show the slide, because it's just 2 slides, if you don't mind.
I suggest you do not enter back into the presentation, so potential hiccups.
Well, okay, so what happened was, well, you are all aware that Nigeria is a developing country. It is located in Africa. And one important thing that was found, to inform, to drive any evaluation, in the presence, of a legislation. But often what you have is, in most African countries, you have monitoring and evaluation policies that are sitting on the shelf. So one thing that was observed is it is because most of those policies perhaps are not homegrown, are not put within the context of those countries. Maybe they are donor-driven or whatever. So APRIA had African Evaluation Association had that observation. And in fact, in 2015, it advocated the need for Africa to domesticate its policies, strategies, and processes within the African context. Because we realize we have been borrowing models, from developed countries, from the West. But those models have not been working. So which means something, is really wrong. It's really wrong. So that's what informed, Nigeria to follow an approach of developing a homegrown monitoring and evaluation policy framework. And to do that, it introduced certain key elements to ensure that, it is functional and will not remain on the shelf. So part of what it did, and again, so part of what it did is Nigeria, unlike many other African countries, operate a federal system of government, just like United States. I think it is only one of the countries in Africa that operate federalism, which means the federal government, the states, the local government are all autonomous. So when you are developing a policy framework, it means you have to really put it within that context. We are not unitary government, so we have to put that into context. And again, Nigeria has a population of about 200 million people, with over 300, so many languages. And moving to a population of about 450 million by the year 2050. That is becoming the third most populated country. So that is an issue. And again, the existing situation has, we have very uncoordinated policies. And then we also have complex politics operating in the country. So what we did was to kickstart a process of coming up with a policy that will aim at utilization of that policy. So part of what we did is to develop a robust governing framework where we have the federal, the states, and the local government having a structure, a governance framework that will drive the process. So that's the first thing that we did. And then we also have a robust engagement of all those stakeholders so that there is ownership and inclusiveness in the process. And then because of the complexity of the monitoring system, again, monitoring evaluation, we say, okay, our policy is going to focus more, on government policies, programs, and projects that are operating at those levels. There are several monitoring systems. And the context of monitoring is such that everybody is into monitoring. You even become confused. So we say, okay, our monitoring policy is going to look at government policies, government projects, and government programs. And then we also adopt what we call a monitoring.
In the interest of time, only very briefly now, please.
Okay. We also adopt what we call a monitoring evaluation policy framework. What we realize is you can have a monitoring policy and evaluation policy, but again, they are informed by other policies within the government. Because you can have the evaluation policy, you can have the monitoring policy, but they are informed by other policies within the government. So we say it should not be a policy framework, not a monitoring evaluation policy, but a monitoring evaluation policy framework. Sorry. And then we quickly also put certain committees, high-level committees and technical committees. High-level committees to advise, the policy, the ministers, the advisory committees, then technical committees. So in general, in brief, this is what, we did, which we feel, is innovative to ensure that, the policy get utilized rather than remain on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Lawal, I do for sure want to give a chance to Finland as well as one more opportunity for the floor and possible rephrasing with the podium ready for translation too. Please, Ulla or Sami at the audio end.
Unfortunately, Sami is not in audio. Well, I could perhaps hear him, but the loudspeakers on my computer are not of good quality. But Sami has been really kind. I have been typing the questions and he's been reacting, so I have backstopping facilities. First, I would like to tackle the issue of the phenomenon-based budgeting and whether it's the same as results-based budgeting. Actually, Finland skipped the results-based budgeting. We have been very strictly budgeting expenses by ministries and by agencies, although we have always requested our development partners to exercise results-based budgeting. But actually, having skipped that, we are now, according to Sami, for the last 2 years, we are trying to learn phenomenon-based budgeting. In practice, we are trying to get rid of the isolation of ministry-level funding. You can imagine that things like environmental issues, they require cooperation of several line ministries and agencies. And in order to calculate the cost, there's an exercise going that we try to put aside thinking what are the line ministries. We look at how much does it cost to cover that action that is related, let's say, combating climate change or reducing greenhouse emissions. And we started with environment. I know that phenomenon-based budgeting would be very good idea for linking phenomena that are in the cross-section of health, education, and social matters. But that is such a big piece of cake to take that we are not there yet. But our Supreme Audit Institution is going to study the issue in the next year, and we'll get their report and suggestions. Sami, do you have? Please write down if you would like to add something. Yes, I can hear you and the audience, so you can speak even Finnish.
I'm not sure that that audio link is then working unless we have projection or voice. I'm afraid we're going to have to, Sami, unless we are able to get on. This is not going to work, and so thank you very much, Sami. We're not going to go through translation from Finnish and through here. Thank you very much for your readiness, but I'm afraid on the interest of keeping momentum to this, we were going to have to, so our apologies to Sami. I will allow briefly for a round of further reflections from the floor. Allow me only to synthesize from some of the concerns that have been raised what amounts to no more than a personal reflection, and it's in the respect of the VNR process, which is a prism through which many come to the overall perspective of the SDGs. And allow me to say this. My reading, having followed the VNR and HLPF process for the years so far, has been all about landing the priorities of the SDGs. The VNR process does not yet yield any evaluative substance as to why do some things work and some things not work. We're still looking for anchors to implementation of the SDGs. That's, I think, part of what we grapple with in all the countries, respectively, in our own very particular ways. Our politics, our administrations are indeed all very complex, and so finding the anchor to implementation and then the role of the evaluation is arguably the challenge that we all face. We don't have any of the answers, and we will continue to grapple with that. I will allow then a last round, or otherwise, in the interest of the program as a whole, I'm pausing momentarily. We will then draw the session to a close. And my apologies for those who had questions, concerns, they did not feel were able to be fully addressed. Please, on behalf of the panel, feel free to engage individually and bilaterally for further discussions of the experience. Meanwhile, let me, on the panel's behalf, thank you all for your interest and thank you very much for participating in this session.